I hate Persona 5. This game is everything that I don't like about video games. It's anime as heck, half of the game is a JRPG, and the other half is a visual novel dating sim. Looking at this game, it had to be exclusively for weirdos or something. Anyways, 200 hours later, and I fucking love this game, and I have a lot that I want to say about it. Persona 5 is a very big game with a lot to say, and I just want to preface this video a bit with what to expect. I'm not really going to be doing a full thematic breakdown or a what Persona 5 means to me type of video here. For the most part, this is going to be my thoughts on each arc of the story, divided by palaces, and then talking about the confidants. So if that's what you're here for, then strap in. Otherwise, make sure to leave a dislike on your way out. So yeah, I've been mildly obsessed with Persona 5 for the past— oh my goodness! It's been a long time since I've been properly obsessed with a video game like this. And a big part of that is because of the way that the game balances between its JRPG elements and its visual novel elements, never spending too long on one to make you get tired of it. Unfortunately, this video essay will not be so well balanced, because I'm going to be talking about all of the palaces first, and then after that we'll get into the visual novel friend simulator stuff. So here we go, yippee, palaces, woo! So this is the third friggin' time I've had to try and record this, so let's hope it goes better this time. The very first target of the Phantom Thieves is Kamoshida, the abusive high school volleyball coach. So, given that he's the first villain you face, his power is very limited. He can't really do much outside of the school. But despite that, he's also the most compelling villain in the game, and his power feels ever-present, and there's a few reasons for that. First, you have Ryuji, the idiot with a heart of gold, and one of the most likable characters in Persona 5. The first thing you learn about him is that he hates Kamoshida. The reason for his hatred is because Kamoshida broke Ryuji's leg, permanently disabling his knee, which made it impossible for him to pursue his dream of running. You also learn right around this time that he's dating one of his female students, An, and that she isn't the first. He's a creep. Bro needs to get his life on track if he sees these girls as acceptable romantic partners. The final and most critical part of making Kamoshida such a compelling villain is that the people he's hurting are the people all around you. You feel Kamoshida's menacing presence throughout the whole school. You see the way that he's hurting students' lives. You see the mental and physical toll that it's taking on the volleyball team. You see the fear that An and Shiho are living in because of him. And Kamoshida's actions ultimately culminate in Shiho attempting to kill herself by jumping off of the school roof, which is the final deciding factor for Ryuji, Joker, and An to finally steal Kamoshida's heart. While Kamoshida himself is a delightfully devilish villain, the rest of the palace isn't too great, to be honest. I don't like the music, and the theme of it is, I guess, played out. I've seen these sorts of castles so much in games that they have to do something really interesting and different to make me like it. I do love this painting though. But moving on to Madarame's palace, there's honestly not a lot to say. He's much less compelling than Kamoshida because you know that he's doing bad things, aka plagiarism, but you don't really get to see the effects of those actions. I think the bit of Yusuke wanting to paint An is kinda funny, but also emblematic of the poor writing that An suffers from for the majority of the game, but I'll talk about that later. It's cool to see the team start to get their bearings a bit more, and I like the interactions they have as they're trying to figure out how to get into Madarame's palace. I like the art museum theme, and the music is definitely better than Kamoshida's, but overall not super memorable. Except the boss, that thing is gonna haunt my nightmares. After that you get to Kaneshiro, and alright, now we're talking. I don't really like Kaneshiro himself as a villain. He has basically no connection to the Phantom Thieves besides a very tangential relationship to Makoto, but besides that, everything in this palace is awesome. First up you have the music. Price is the best non-vocal song on the soundtrack, and if you disagree, you're wrong. I love the theme too. It being this bank is cool, and I love how there's these little piggy banks all around, representing not only the money they carry, but also Kaneshiro himself being the ruler of gluttony. Makoto is another S-tier character, and she gets introduced here as well. And while I don't think Kaneshiro is that interesting, I'm glad that some of his actions are at least used to humanize Makoto, especially after she's been a minor antagonist to the team so far. I really like Futaba's palace, because it's a twist on what you've come to expect from palaces up until this point. Futaba isn't a villain, although just like the rest of the palaces, hers is still based on one of the 7 deadly sins, wrath. But it's not wrath in the traditional sense. It's a twist on wrath, just as Futaba is a twist on palace rulers. Wrath is presented as self-hatred, and the origin of that is obviously blaming herself for her mother's death. But it manifests in the ways that she lives every day. She doesn't take care of herself. Her room's a mess. She doesn't let herself get close with anyone. She doesn't let herself leave her room. She hates herself. I think the theme of the palace is great. I think that choosing it to be her tomb is absolutely fitting. I also love the actual level design of it. It's the first palace that I actually got lost in while trying to work my way through it. It's very labyrinthian, which is what I really want from my video game dungeons. The puzzles were pretty good. I wouldn't describe any of Persona 5's puzzles as great, but it's also not really the point. And I enjoyed the puzzles in Futaba's palace for what they were. This palace was also where tragedy struck in my playthrough, but we'll talk about that soon. The boss was pretty good, only being vulnerable to physical attacks, but also not being able to be hit by physical attacks for most of the fight was a fun twist, and I enjoyed it quite a bit. It's one of the best palaces as a whole. Even if Kamoshida is my favorite palace ruler, Futaba is not bad by any stretch, and the palace itself plus the boss are much better than Kamoshida's palace. Futaba also does the greatest thing in gaming history by replacing Morgana during fights, so I don't have to hear his dumbass voice anymore.
That's what you literally fucking sound like.
Before you start Okumura's palace in full, you get a very lovely section with Morgana the motherfucker, and I'll talk about that piece of shit when we go into characters. As for Okumura's palace itself, it was alright. I didn't love the music, but the palace itself was awesome. I love how the space theme is like this 80s retro futurist look, rather than what space tech actually looks like now. It made the theme much more interesting visually than I was expecting going in. The boss fight is probably the biggest difficulty spike in the game, but it actually makes use of weaknesses and baton passing and stuff, which is what I really wanted to see out of a boss fight, so I can't complain too much. But I definitely had more trouble with this boss fight than any other. Haru is the companion you get here, and I was a bit skeptical of her at first. I didn't like her metaverse outfit, and I found her voice pretty annoying. But when you finish the palace, you get to see her grow after her father's death, and you watch her learn how to lead the company after he's gone. I think she's a great character despite my initial dislike. Nijima's palace felt a little bit rushed, to be honest. Not like it was unfinished, but more like the story beats leading up to it were going too quickly. I feel like you get hit with this huge plot point of Akechi knowing that your group is the Phantom Thieves, and with almost no breathing room, you're told that Nijima is going to be investigating you in a month, and then you're right into learning that she has a palace and immediately going into it. I feel like all of this needed a bit more time to fully settle for me, and I just didn't get that. The theming of this palace looks great, and Whims of Fate goes unimaginably hard. The palace is also the first time that you get to hear the vocal version of Life Will Change since the beginning of the game, and it is literally the best song on the entire soundtrack, so this palace is definitely up there when it comes to music. The boss fight had a cool idea of incorporating gambling into it, with playing craps and your wins and losses affect the fight, but it doesn't really use it. You just automatically lose each bet until you get rid of the thing Nijima was using to cheat, and then she turns into a monster to fight. An overall disappointing boss fight, mostly because it shows you all the ways it could have been cooler and then doesn't do them. But then, after the palace, you finally catch up to where you were at the beginning of the game. The interrogation scene. Akechi comes in and is, of course, the teammate that turned you in, but I was still shocked somehow. I think that it was just so obvious that it was Akechi that I figured they were gonna go with someone else, but hey, they got me. But they really got me when Akechi shoots Joker. I genuinely didn't know how the gang was gonna get out of this one. It also made me so sad to see Ryuji's reaction to the report on Joker's death. It's just so sad. I also really love the foreshadowing of Akechi being the one behind the mental shutdowns, or at least knowing of the metaverse from the whole pancake thing earlier in the game. I remember thinking that part was odd, but it didn't really stick out that much to me after the fact, which is exactly how something like this should work. Although I can't really say I like Akechi's post-reveal personality. Crazy Akechi comes off as more annoying than a genuine threat, which is a shame. After giving Sai a change of heart, the thieves have to move on to Shido, the politician. I think Shido as this sort of ultimate villain makes a lot of sense on paper. Shido has connections to a few people on the team. He's the reason Joker is on probation, he's behind the murder of Haru's father and Futaba's mother, he got Sai removed from the Phantom Thieves case, and he's been using Akechi to do all of his dirty work. But he doesn't really feel like a villain that did all that. He doesn't feel like a particularly personal evil against the Phantom Thieves. So beating him just kind of feels like beating yet another big evil guy that's hurting a lot of people. It definitely feels the most personal for Joker, which is good that we finally get to see some justice for the inciting incident of the game. And you get more reason to hate Shido after finishing the palace as he murders Akechi. I like the structure of this palace a lot. I like how you see the treasure room right off the bat, but you have to go around and collect the letters of recommendation to actually get inside. Although I thought it was going to be a more open palace with that description, like you could get the letters in any order, but no, it's still a very linear path through the palace. I also like the boat being the theme. It's not my favorite palace visually, but it's very fitting for Shido, and it has some standout moments. The boss fight is fine, I guess. It's funny when Shido turns into Senator Armstrong, and I like the battle changing to a one-on-one between him and Joker for the final phase. And Shido taking a pill to temporarily kill himself just to get rid of the Phantom Thieves shows the level of obsession that he's reached. And they got me by almost killing Ryuji. I believed it with all my heart and was very upset. So I'd say the ending of Shido's Palace is very good, and the rest of it is pretty good. Definitely not bad, just not satisfying. Anyways though, segue. Depths of Mementos. Depths of Mementos. So, something that's been eating away at me for the majority of this game is the whole idea of causing a change of heart in someone. Essentially turning someone into a completely different person without their permission just doesn't sit completely right with me. Killing off the parts of someone that aren't convenient to you isn't good, and it's not your place to do that. But the flip side to that is I think that there's good justification for changing the hearts of most palace rulers. However, I don't believe that there's a proper justification given for altering the minds of everyone in Japan. In fact, outside of the case of imminent death of the people of Japan, I don't think that there could be a good justification for doing this. They eventually get to that point in terms of danger, after already attempting to change the hearts of everyone, but I was not on the group's side for this one, man. I think they were acting very selfishly in their own interests for self-protection, and wanted to make everyone agree with them because it's what the group thought would be best for them. I'm really glad that the third semester palace seems to tackle this idea at least a little bit. I would find it very disappointing if it was never addressed. Then, after finishing the depths, you get to this area in the sky. You fight the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse or something like that, and then you go to the final boss. The 4 horsemen are actually pretty difficult fights. It's like doing 4 mini bosses and then hopping right into the final boss. And man, does that final boss suck complete and total ass! This is hands down the most boring, tedious fight in the game. Yaldabaoth is just a huge damage sponge. Nothing really interesting happens for the majority of the fight. Makoto and Morgana both had abilities to fully heal everyone's health, and I had a ton of SP items, so death was never a worry. They try to mix up the fight some with how the boss will pull out different arms and stuff, but those go down in 2 or 3 hits, so there's no real danger here. Beating him was more of a relief than a triumph. I think that I have the most to say about Maruki's Palace because it's the most recent one I've played. Honestly, I wish I had been taking some notes along the way for all of the palaces, but oh well, here we are. I think having the third semester's final palace be one focused on Maruki was a great idea. Shido didn't really have a close enough connection to the crew to serve as a satisfying final villain in my opinion, and the Mementos boss definitely didn't have that. While yes, Shido did technically have substantial effects on the lives of the Phantom Thieves, I don't think that you really feel it. And I think I would have been much less satisfied with the ending overall if I had played only the original Persona 5. So yes, I think that having a much more personal final palace was a smart choice. And it was especially impressive that they found a way to keep the stakes just as high as the Mementos Palace. I had one major complaint going into this palace, and it kind of got addressed as time went on, but I still want to talk about it. I don't think that they dissected Maruki's philosophy enough before entering the palace to make me believe that he was wrong. They talk about it for a very short time right before deciding unanimously to infiltrate his palace. And I just think that there's more nuance here than that. Especially since Futaba's mom and Haru's dad are both alive again. And not like partially alive or something, in Akechi's own words.
They aren't mere illusions or cognitive beings. They truly are alive and existing in this world.
I feel like this aspect wasn't explored nearly enough. The fact that we'd essentially be killing two people who have no say over it does not sit right. Yes, Akechi is going to die as well, but Akechi knows that defeating Maruki will lead to his existence ending, and he's able to make that choice for himself to die because he's fighting for what he believes in. Futaba and Haru's parents don't have a choice. The Phantom Thieves are deciding to kill two people who are fully alive because they want to return to their own reality. Not because the majority of the public wants it, but because we want it. And how is what Maruki is doing any different than what the Phantom Thieves did when they went to the depths of Mementos? They altered the cognition of the entire nation of Japan because they thought it would be for a better future. Maruki is doing the same thing. And is he wrong? Is he wrong to end every war, end world hunger, end pointless, meaningless suffering? Not the kind of suffering that makes you stronger, because I think there's an argument to be made that that's wrong, but the suffering that has no meaning. And for the game to so quickly just say, yeah, that guy's evil and completely different from the Phantom Thieves, let's go get him, is troubling. I think living in a happy lie told by someone else is not a healthy way to exist compared to living in a sometimes tragic truth told by yourself. But would someone who doesn't know if they're gonna eat tomorrow feel the same way? More time should have been spent exploring Maruki's philosophy before just diving headfirst into fighting him when the player may not be sure if they agree that Maruki is doing something wrong. This isn't the first time the third semester shows some inconsistencies in the Phantom Thieves' ideals, so maybe it's intentional to some extent. I'm too lazy to look up more, so just have this one from Yusuke, where in reaction to seeing someone punished for choosing to steal the heart of the person she loves, he says that he has no tolerance for people forcing their will onto others like that. Which, dude, what do you think you've been doing this whole game? Especially when you went to the depths of Mementos. It's a very hypocritical statement. So much so that I definitely think that it's here on purpose. So maybe Maruki's palace was supposed to be an extension of that? His palace is much more morally gray than any others that you tackle in the game, and I think that's good. I just wish that it had been treated as morally gray and less black and white by the Phantom Thieves. All that said, I do like his palace a lot for these reasons. I already had some doubts towards the Phantom Thieves' actions, and this palace only made me question them more. So I'm glad that the game was able to present more complex moral quandaries like this. I absolutely love the visual theming of this palace, more than any other in the game. The way the beginning of it looks like it's a pristine white doctor's office, it's exactly how you see Maruki for most of the game. And then as you delve deeper inside, it's this messy, dingy sort of back room area, reflecting the distorted desires you started to see in Maruki, which are fully realized here. The final fight strikes a good balance after the travesty of Yaldabaoth. With Maruki's fight, you have the first phase, which is amazing. Finally, a boss that actually makes proper use of the baton pass. Maruki is a decently difficult and appropriately long fight, and I love that it all but forces you to use baton pass if you want to do any meaningful damage. And he talks to each member of your party during the fight, desperately trying to show them how he believes he can give them a better life. It's pitch perfect. Then the second phase is an easier, shorter fight, with an absolutely killer music track. I love somber boss themes, and Throw Away Your Mask is incredible. Lyrically, it's almost like a response to Beneath the Mask, saying that you don't need to hide behind your mask anymore, that you can be free rather than chained down to your core. But that final phase, where it's just you and Maruki, no personas, just weakly beating each other up with whatever you both have left. You both would die for what you believe in, and this fight is a perfect display of that. Absolutely incredible palace, and one worthy of the finale of a game the size of Persona 5.
From your cheeks anymore. You want me to strive for greatness. Believe in me that you don't need to suffer from anything.
Confidants time, yay! One of the first confidants that you meet in this game is Sojiro. I was not a big fan of Sojiro at first. In the very early game, he comes off as kind of a jerk. But much like the dad who insists that he doesn't want to get a pet, Sojiro really starts to warm up to you. I think the first time that you start to really see Sojiro's heart is when, funnily enough, you bring home a pet, Morgana. He really tries to keep up his act that he doesn't want to have a cat around, but it can't last for long. And the point where I really started loving Sojiro was the first time that you brought your friends over. I feel like that's the point where it really becomes clear that he was being hard on you to try and get the best out of you. And I think when he sees the community that you've built around yourself, he knows that you can be trusted and eases up a bit. God bless Sojiro. Ryuji's the best little guy. Like I said earlier, he's such a lovable little dumbass, and also the only person at school that doesn't hold some kind of grudge against you for having a criminal record. He's actually willing to hear you out when you want to talk about how your case isn't as black and white as it may seem. And yeah, he's willing to hear Joker out because he has his own history with violence, and in the same vein of righteous anger against an oppressor, which is also something I really like about Ryuji. He gets rightfully angry when he sees people in power abusing that power, and he doesn't try to hide that anger or keep it locked up. He's a good guy who can't stand to see people getting hurt, and he'll do anything in his power to stop it. His social link arc is kind of a repeat of fighting Kamoshida, but with a much sharper focus on Ryuji and what the track team means to him, and also how this new coach threatens that. It's much more singularly focused than Kamoshida, who has so many evil things that he's doing that Ryuji's love of running kind of gets a bit lost. It's a good arc, as you see Ryuji learn to work more for others than himself, trying to get the track team as a whole on a good path, even if it means that he won't be able to join it himself. Absolutely love this guy. Which is one of the multitude of reasons why I hate Morgana with every fiber of my being. He's such a little asshole, to Ryuji in particular. I thought it was just banter for a while, but as the game goes on, it goes a lot farther than just banter or teasing. Morgana is genuinely so awful to him. He's an asshole to the rest of the team as well, except for An obviously, who he simps so hard for that it becomes half of his entire character. And he won't shut the fuck up during battles. I was so relieved when he got replaced by Futaba. I could finally stop hearing, "You're so gorgeous, Panther," every time I did anything as An in battle. Something that really pushed me over the edge was a scene after Kanashiro's palace. Morgana is being vulnerable. He's talking about how he remembers some things that suggest he might not be human. And since wanting to be human is the other half of Morgana's character, I tried to be encouraging and say that I'm sure that he's human. Because even though I hate the guy, I thought maybe this could be a chance to turn things around. Maybe we could put the past behind us and just start working towards building a genuine friendship here. And so, in response to me being supportive, Morgana says,
"Talk about a lukewarm response."
That is it. I am choosing every mean dialogue option from here until the end of time when it comes to Morgana. I hate this little shit. But Morgana somehow gets even worse. Before the team tackles Okumura's palace, it is lightly suggested that they wait to do the palace, because there's so much hype around the Phantom Thieves and it may be unwise to act right now. They don't even say that they shouldn't fight Okumura or anything, just that they should let the heat die down a bit first. But Morgana can't handle this, and because of this extremely minor disagreement, Morgana leaves the party to go tackle Okumura on his own, and ends the argument by telling Ryuji,
"I'm more admirable than some carnal blonde monkey."
which is just wrong. No one likes you, Morgana. The actual reason he leaves the team is because he feels like he's useless to the team. But oh, Morgana, you aren't useless. You're less than useless. You're actively detrimental to the team. In addition to smaller, more annoying things like making Joker stay home in the evening after a Palace or Mementos trip, he's an asshole to everyone on the team. Morgana is terrible for morale. He's self-obsessed, constantly going on about how he's human, always combative with team members, arguing over semantics rather than worrying about the tasks at hand. But despite all of this, we can put aside those things and offer Morgana a spot back on the team. Because ultimately, we all want to succeed together. And we owe a lot to Morgana for our introduction to the inner workings of the metaverse early on. But he still can't accept this because
I have my pride to protect.
he is so awful. But after all of that, Morgana is finally able to be open about the ways that he's feeling. And it's the most likable that he gets in the entire game. I don't hate Morgana after this point. He becomes much more tolerable. Rather than insisting on how he must be a human all the time, he now acts curious about his origins. Which is why on the tier list I'll show at the end of this, he's not full in F tier, but he is damn near close. An, Morgana's beloved. I am not a fawn of An. She is a walking female stereotype. She's a ditzy blonde airhead, she likes shopping, she's a model, she wants to get stronger, and her arc ends with her deciding that she'd rather become more beautiful than try to get stronger. And yes, a lot of Persona 5 characters seem like stereotypes when you first meet them. Ryuji's the bad boy, Makoto is the serious girl, Sojiro is the strict dad, Futaba's a gamer girl. But all of these start to melt away as you spend more time with them. You see Ryuji's passion for running, Makoto's desire to fit in, Sojiro's love for his family, and Futaba's resilience to break through her social anxiety. But An only falls deeper into her initial stereotypical depiction. And it sucks because I think something interesting could have been done here. She's an immigrant into Japan, and with how this game has a lot to criticize about Japanese culture, they definitely could have used it as an opportunity to discuss the xenophobia that's ever present in the country. Maybe issues she's had to deal with in her time here. Just an idea, but almost anything would have been better than what An got. Hi, hey, hello, how are you? Editor Flavio here, and I'm here to tell you about something that happened in between the process of writing this video and editing this video. I saw somebody on YouTube.com talking about An and her character arc in Persona 5. It was this video right here, actually. And she brought up a lot of points that I did not realize or I didn't notice while I was playing through the game. Go watch that if you think that I'm stupid. Okay, I'll let you get back to your video now. Sumire is interesting. Initially, she's introduced to you as Kasumi, and you get to know this gymnast as she helps you, I guess, get more stamina? I don't really know. She slightly increases your HP and SP sometimes when you hang out with her. Her character arc is interesting because she doesn't change much for the majority of the game. You know she wants to be the best at everything she does, from academics to athletics, but you don't really know why. Until you get to the third semester, that is. And this is where you learn that Kasumi is actually Sumire. Kasumi Yoshizawa died saving Sumire Yoshizawa from a car accident. And since then, Sumire has taken on living the life of her sister to avoid the survivor's guilt. I think Sumire's arc is interesting because after coming to terms with who she really is, she still ends it all with the same goals. What changes is her motivation. She doesn't just want to be the best gymnast because she wants to be Kasumi. She now wants to honor the memory of Kasumi by performing in her own way moving forward. And I think that's beautiful. I've said most of my thoughts on Maruki already when discussing his palace, but I have a few things to say about him before his turn to the dark side. There's the obvious, probably the first thing that you'll notice. He's hot as fuck. I let this man do unspeakable things to me. In retrospect, his social link events mostly just feel like foreshadowing for his eventual turn, but I mean, that's his arc, so it makes sense. He's just kind of a silly guy before the third semester. He's handing out snacks and just being a chill dude. He's just a little scrunkly. Since Ryuji wasn't a dateable character, I had to settle for Takemi as the love interest. Although I'd say I only barely settled. Oh, Takemi, my beloved. The goth GF we all wanted, but none of us deserved. However, nothing can stay good forever, and tragedy soon struck. I knew that rank 9 of female character social links was when you get the chance to start dating, so when I was at rank 9 with Takemi, and Joker thought to himself that I should choose my next words carefully, I knew it was my time to shine. So when Takemi asked, I said that I was doing the clinical trials because I wanted to see her, and I followed that up by saying I loved her. And so when she offered me her special examination, of course I said I'd like that. It seemed like that was the obvious choice combined with what I'd already said to make my feelings clear to her. And she kind of rolled her eyes at that, but I assumed we were still all good and that I had begun a romantic relationship with her. But such was not fate, and I saved over my file with my unknowingly terrible actions now set in stone. I only learned a couple of days later what I had done when I was talking to one of my friends about it. Now you might be asking, Flavio, you silly goose, why don't you just reload a previous save? I mean, there's 16 save files in Persona 5, surely you've been making use of them. And oh dear viewer, if only such were the case. But while I had taken the advice of my Persona 5 experienced friend to save often, I didn't take to heart that I should be saving to multiple files so that I could roll back the clock when needed. So, there was only one save I could roll back to. Over a month prior in-game, before I had completed Futaba's palace, and over 20 hours of playtime ago. But true love knows no bounds, and so, dear viewer, I rolled back the clock, grinded all the way through Futaba's palace again, reacquired every will seed, redid all 6 Mementos requests I had previously completed, replayed all the social link events with my confidants, and rebirthed my Final Fantasy VII. And it all only took about 5 hours. Well, except Final Fantasy VII Reboot. But yeah, it's surprising how much of Persona 5 is reading and how much faster the game is when you fast forward. And thus, I was able to find the love of my life, Tei Takemi, and begin my lifelong love story. And that's the last character I have much to say about, so we'll just be lightning rounding the rest of these. Makoto is another of my absolute favorite characters in the game. They do a really good job pitting her against you early on, and also being able to turn that on its head to make her so likable after she joins the party. I definitely would have dated her if I hadn't fallen head over heels for Takemi. Futaba, the gamer girl and 4'11" queen. I was horrified when I found out that Takemi is almost the same height as her without heels on. I like Futaba's arc. It's really good to see someone breaking out of being terminally online. I feel like it's much more relevant now than it was back in 2017, and potentially even giving hope to people who are currently struggling with stuff like this. Real community is the way out. I like Haru's arc of learning to run her father's company in the wake of his death, and dealing with all the different ways people treat her now because of her position. I wish she had gotten more spotlight going into Okumura's palace instead of just focusing on Morgana's pity party, but despite that, Haru is still able to shine through. People simp so hard for Akechi, and I honestly don't see why. His character is interesting in the main story right up until he becomes crazy Akechi, and his likability falls straight through the floor. I didn't find his social link events that enjoyable either. I just kept thinking about how Death Note did a rival character better, which maybe is unfair, but I just watched it, so it's the comparison that I'm making. Fuck this man. I felt bad for Mishima a bit during the Kamoshida arc, but then immediately afterwards he tells you that he knows you're the Phantom Thieves and then forces himself into the team by making the website, even if you ask him not to. He's so annoying and only gets worse the more time you spend with him. Okay, so Yoshida, or as I call him, the politician guy, is a great dude. He fights for the importance of young people and their needs like it's the only thing that matters. And I'd agree with him. I think young people, and I include myself in that, are very important for shaping the future. And most of the time, young people are belittled and taught that their thoughts aren't as valid as those with more time on this earth. I have great respect for Yoshida, and I think that the world would be a better place if there were more people like him in political positions. I think I liked Kawakami less as I spent more time with her. I really liked her as the school year started, but once you begin her social link and start with all the maid stuff, everything kinda goes downhill. It's funny the first time, and only the first time. She gets better towards the end of her arc, but I didn't really enjoy my time with her overall. Chihaya. This bitch requires 100,000 yen and a Mementos request to even get her shit started. You better be glad you have good confidant perks. There is nothing to say about Oya. No redeeming qualities. Please kill me, 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 please kill me. I did not finish the twins Yusuke, Mishima, or Hifumi. I went through EY and the Gamer Kid's confidants, but I genuinely just don't have anything meaningful to say about them. I guess the Gamer Kid gives you some pretty neat gun perks though. I think that my biggest regrets of the game are first, spending so much time working on stats. I'd get so consumed with wanting to tackle a given person's social link that I'd grind up the necessary stats every time I was free, rather than working on other confidants and naturally building some of those social stats up. Or just using free time when no one I liked was available. Instead, I'd ignore people like Ryuji or Sojiro just so I could grind up my charm for more time with Takemi. My other biggest regret is not spending more time with Yusuke. After seeing some of his events through YouTube videos and stuff, I kinda regret that I didn't spend more time with him. He didn't pass the vibe check for me when I first met him, and I just kinda used that initial distaste as an excuse to not spend any more time with him. It's a shame. Anyways, here's my tier list for the confidants, not based on abilities or character writing or arcs or anything like that, just purely based on how much I like them. I was very skeptical that however the game ended, it was going to be unsatisfying, just because there's no way that an ending to a roughly 200-hour journey was going to be able to wrap things up successfully. But I think that it was done very well. I think letting you walk around and say goodbye to everyone was the key here. You're able to take it at your own pace. If you need an hour to be ready to say goodbye, then take an hour. Listen to every conversation going on in the cities. Or if you think you're ready after 10 minutes, that's fine as well. It's what the game needed to do. It almost seems obvious, but I think most things that work well seem obvious after the fact. And I'm sure a lot of time went into getting this segment just right. The ending cutscene itself was fine, there's nothing really wrong with it. I wish that Sumiri had a few more words, especially since she didn't show up during the walk around the town segment where you say goodbye to everyone else. I like how it gives you a little foreshadowing after the credits to the Phantom Thieves' future adventures. It's good enough, but I think that it really sticks the landing because of the segment right before it. And other than wishing Sumire had a bit more to say, I'm happy with the ending, which is much more than I was expecting given how much time I've invested into the game as a whole. I think Persona 5 makes a very nuanced critique of collectivism, because while it harshly criticizes a lot of the conformity and collectivism of Japanese culture, it also makes the distinction that collective action, when used for the goal of reducing suffering, is a good thing, and often is the only way to produce change. The collective action here is the Phantom Thieves and their actions, but Persona 5 also knows the importance of the individuals who make up that collective. And the game is pretty heavy-handed in the way it talks about the importance of young people and how they're the only way to make a true change for the future, which they can only do when working together for a common goal. But the game makes even further distinctions than this. You have characters like Sumire, who doesn't want to join the Phantom Thieves because she disagrees with their methods, but she still helps Joker develop his skills even though she knows he's using them to do things for the Phantom Thieves. It shows how you can still be a part of the collective action for good even when you're not on the front lines, and even if you don't completely agree with the way the results are reached. Persona 5 is a great video game. And yeah, despite all of my whining, it is the most fun I've had this side of Breath of the Wild. It has incredible writing and characters. The battle system is a blast to play, the limited time keeps the game constantly engaging, the visual style is through the roof, the music is immaculate, and the game is beautiful, in every sense of the word, and in every area of the game. Persona 5 is a masterpiece.